All right, well, welcome to today's podcast. And I am sitting here with Paul Klassen, and he is the CEO of Pinnacle Renovations. And maybe, Paul, you can introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your bio.
So. There you go. Yeah, I've been in the business for 25 years here, plus in Calgary. Excited to be here today talking on your podcast about some of the things we've done collaboratively last couple of years. But yeah.
Yeah, we've... Paul and I met about 10 years ago, or close to 10 years ago, I guess it is, and it was been a match made in heaven ever since because we come across some very interesting situations in real estate, and we're going to talk about a lot of that in this podcast because it's amazing as you meet people and discover where they're at, what they're trying to do. Right. Being from A, going from B to C or whatever, and where their existing house is sitting at. And I think it's safe to say you've pretty well seen it all too, hey, Paul?
Kind of like you. Yeah, we've been in a lot of homes in this city. Absolutely.
And I remember when I first met with you, I think the first thing that really was attracting me to your knowledge was I just asked you some questions about inside the house, and you gave me like an amazing answer of even some of the history of the wood and how it all came about, beams in the ceiling.
Probably a little TMI. I am a little passionate about this industry, so yeah, I may come a little, I might OD on occasion with detail.
Now, these podcasts are always designed to be educational, and my goal for anyone who's watching this podcast is to maybe learn something, and there's a takeaway here today, and you're going to find with, I think, our level of experience in what we do, there should be some good takeaways. But the big thing is this program that we came up with, which we call Renovate or Relocate, which is kind of a takeoff from that old show on television called Love It or List It.
Yep.
Which I'm glad is off the television now. They're only showing reruns because.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, well, I used to get so frustrated because I'd always be like, list it, right.
Right. And I'm saying, love it.
Right. So maybe you can share with our audience just what exactly is Renovate or Relocate.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we kind of had some fun there, Rob, just on the Love It or List It banter, but I mean, ultimately we both have the same motivation. I think that's what drew us together. You're talking about a match made in heaven. I think that's really what it is. We both have the same kind of heart where we want the right thing for the customer. So sometimes it's going to be love it, sometimes it's going to be listed. So there's going to be times when the home could work and we can renovate. There's other times when they should relocate, and typically they're going to need some kind of renovation anyway, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, it's just about identifying whether your home can work for your current and future needs, and that's a collaboration between realtor and renovator. It really is.
Yeah, because like we talk about people's situations, because so often we meet people and they're like almost like a deer in headlights sometimes. Because you're right, first of all, what is my property worth? If we were to make the move, what does that look like? What are the challenges that come with making the move? And then, of course, like I said, should they stay and maybe consider just renovating and staying where they are? These are pretty big decisions. Yeah. Because I mean, when you're living in your home and trying to make these decisions is not easy. And I think we love this program because so often, the realtor comes in, it's like list it. So.
That's true. It's very biased. It's very subjective, and I think that's what I love about this, Rob, as well. Because and the other part of this, if I can jump in, is not just this conversation, but then there's a client, for example, that we've dealt with on several occasions that's transferring into town and is looking for that ideal property, and there's no such animal. It's like 7, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 checks on the box, but the rest of it needs to be brought up to 21st century. So that's an amazing collaborative experience between you and I as well.
Yeah, and that's true, and because it is happens so often. We will take a buyer out and we show them what inventory is available, and they go, well, I don't really like anything I'm seeing.
Right.
And it's hard for them to realize that maybe there is actually a perfect property if we just made some modifications to it. Yep. And these are some of the things we're able to do. So let's talk about some of these experiences that we've had. We've had a few case studies of some clients. So let's just refer to one particular case study, and that was Lee and Ellen. And so they had a property, I believe it was Woodbine, that they were living in. And I remember going over there, it was a 4-level split. And it's funny because I have this amazing memory of houses. I can remember houses from like 15 years ago. Actually, I met somebody in the mall the other day in Chinook Mall. I didn't recognize their face. And they said, well, Rob, you sold us our house. And then I remembered who they were, and I remembered their house.
Wow.
from 15 years ago. Couldn't
Crazy.
remember them, but I remember their house.
Wow.
So I actually remember Lee's house like it was yesterday. It was a 4-level split, and what it was built in about 1984. And it was absolutely original.
And mint though.
Mint condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, mint condition.
Initially, they wanted to renovate, and they called us, and I said, "You got to talk to Rob because they were talking about finding their forever home, and that may or may not have been the home. So then you came in and continued."
That's right. And so, for where they were at, and, keep in mind, if you've ever been into 4-level splits, there's a lot of stairs.
Indeed.
And, they were reaching that age where you don't really want stairs. And, but they were still open to the idea of renovating, right? I mean, that was why, that's why we were there. And so, anyway, this is how it all went down. I showed them what their current value of their home was. And everybody wants to know that.
Of course.
Then they also want to know, well, what if I did spend $2, $3, $4, whatever $100,000 it is to make it the way that I want it? What would my home be worth then?
Right.
They always want to know that too, which is another story we'll talk about in a minute.
Indeed.
But we went over that, and the decision was made, let's sell this house and let's move into a condo.
Right. That was quite a lot of conversation that happened to get there, though.
It was.
And then they started divulging what they really wanted their future to look like. And that whole lock and leave idea was really attractive because they traveled extensively. So yeah, you came up with a great solution and said, well, maybe an adult community was the way to go. So yeah, continue.
Yeah, well, they gave us their parameters.
It was tight.
Yeah,
wow.
Like geographically where they wanted to live.
Yes.
And the price point they wanted to be in. Like it was really not an easy, it was a tall order, let's put it that way. But with some time, we managed to find that place, and of course we made the offer. And I remember we had to compete for that property too. We had to have a competing offer. We had to really come up with a strategy around that to make it work. So we got the property, and then we put their place on the market, and we got it sold, and then you went in and tell us about what happened there.
Well, yeah, that actually just a step before, Rob, if you recall, that's the whole renovate or relocate kind of model. Is before they put the offer on, I looked at the MLS listing and they said, could we do A, B, and C to this home? And I can't remember in this case, did I actually come in or just see the listing? I forget now.
You did come in.
I did. So we talked it through before they put the offer. It was quick. We had to get in there and quick in and out in this market for sure. Anyway, we came up with the idea that we could do what they were after, and that was really make it amazing. And that's what then occurred as you talked about.
Well, that condo was also very dated. I mean, and it had the space, and I remember it had a lot of beautiful windows, and it was actually on the main floor, and it had
beautiful complex.
Beautiful complex. Anyway, but man, I'll tell you, it was incredible what you guys did there. It really was, and it's a great story. I mean, the audience is probably thinking, boy, it'd be nice to see what the photos are like. But it is beautiful, and you can see those photos on the Pinnacle website, actually.
You betcha.
So, but the really cool thing about that case study was that I think even for the clients, when we started this journey with them, I don't even think that they really even understood what they were going to end up with. And I remember when it was all said and done, because even Lee had said to me, I couldn't have even visualized this, at the beginning, that this is what we would have had, hey?
Yeah, and the interesting thing was, and we do this often in Calgary, there's a fair amount of people that travel south for the winter. So the timing was such that they go to Hawaii every year. We came in and renovated while they were away. They came back, they had never seen the home. I mean, they saw the before and then they saw the after when they came back from vacation. So it was dramatic, and it turned out, I think, fantastic. So kind of, I call it a triple header. So we were able to find a buyer for their current home, find that amazing new condo, but then renovate it such that it made it their own, and it wasn't just a unit; it was their home.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. I mean, it's a goosebump kind of experience, because the outcome and the comments from them were, like you said, they couldn't have imagined this outcome as nice as it was. So, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and we're giving you one out of many stories. I think we're going to share one more, because we could be on this call for a long time, actually, with how many times we've actually had some success with this program. But just before we give you one more story, this is where I think we really enjoy it the most. Even though, when we go into people's homes, and we do kind of like to make it fun, but we are there to make sure at the end of the day, we do what's best for the client, whatever that might do.
That's the motive, period.
It is, yeah. I mean, and of course, like I said, in a perfect world, I would love it if you would list it. And you would definitely like them to stay.
Right.
But as we keep saying, moving and finding something else too is also a fantastic solution.
You bet.
But I can tell you this, from all the years that I have been in this business, it is really hard for the average person to visualize what the home could be like.
Right. So true.
How do you guys deal with that?
Great question, and a part of it comes to what can be done, because that's the whole part of this renovate or relocate kind of conversation is we actually go with you to the client. If you remember, I don't know which case study you're going to bring up, but on a couple of them, we visited many listings over a 6 or 9 month period. And on each one of them, I know enough to be dangerous, I guess. I've been in the industry for 3 decades plus. I know what's possible. So I know that that's load bearing or that's not or whatever. So they talk about, well, we want an open concept. We want to do this or do that. If we could really do that, that would be amazing. So we walk through them at that listing stage. I let them know the possibilities, and then from there we actually go to design. So we create the 2D and 3D designs, and that really is what brings it all to light. A lot of times what's amazing is that the 3D looks so nice in comparison to like the outcome, and the final result is so similar. It's amazing what new software can do. The new 3D software is fantastic. So that's how we get there.
Right.
So start with that walkthrough. Okay, I find inherent problems. Like if you remember a couple of listings, there was problems. I said, don't buy this house because of A, B, and C. It was structural. So then we went and saw the one we landed on, and it checked all the boxes except the house was dated in 1972. And in that case, if we're gonna, maybe we can segue into that. That was Alina and Sergey, right? They couldn't believe what I told them at the walkthrough, and this is where it gets a little bit fun. They thought they were renovating this kitchen where it was. And I said, no, where this kitchen belongs is completely relocated into this other room. And their eyes got like this big. Really? You can do that? And then the rest is history. It's on our website.
Yeah, I remember when we first met, and even me, just being in the selling of the home, never really too much into the renovation of the homes. And I remember, I don't know how many times I'd say to you, Paul, can we do this? And to my amazement, you always said yes. It was always a yes. It was never a no.
Right.
But of course, it was always, hey, if we have enough time and enough money to make it happen,
there you go.
We can do it. We can do anything. Yep. And I have seen you do that over and over again. So yes, Sergey and Lena was a perfect example. They were another one that was just amazed with the results at the end. Because we found them. A dream home. They were living in Mahogany at the time that I met them, and they were, they were actually tired of living in a community that had no mature trees.
Right.
Yeah, and they were close to the main road. They could hear the traffic, and so they just wanted to be in a more of an older, established neighborhood with the mature trees, bigger yard. Yep. Total privacy in the back, right?
Yeah.
And of course, massive yard. And the reality is, you can't get that in most cases without doing some work to the house.
And if you remember, Rob, it wasn't just the interior in this home, we did the exterior as well.
Right.
So the whole front curb appeal, just updated, it just looks amazing. And they were really strong do-it-yourselfers. So they got into, they got their hands dirty on the yard and landscaping and trees and arbor work. It was a really tired and very unkept property, but they took care of the exterior in terms of getting the yard wrapped up, and we took care of the actual facade, and then of course all the interior renovations. So it's pretty gratifying overall.
I found that when you find the location, like the absolute perfect location, which for a lot of people it is some of these older established neighborhoods.
Sure is.
You do tend to stay a long time. I was joking with her last time I saw her, and I said, Alina, any chance you're going to be moving? And she laughed and said, I don't think you'll be any real estate services.
I can't get a listing from you. fun.
You know, so but that's great because but they're very, very happy, and it's true. I think they will be probably there for a very, very long time.
Rob, we should bring one more case study up
Yeah.
because it's so. I think this is testament to you and your team's patience, because I really think we should segue over to this other one too. I know we were only going to do two, but that project was a very specific situation. And again, my memory doesn't serve me well enough to know if you came into them first or I came to them. I forget now, but what I do know is we both worked together on finding their perfect forever home. They were in a 2-story home. They wanted to retire. They travel extensively and wanted to be very specifically in a neighborhood in the Tri-Wood area. And boy, did you find an amazing property. But it took how long, Rob? This is, I think, what most renovators and realtors don't have is patience.
Right.
They just don't have the patience to see this through. The outcome was amazing. You want to talk
Yeah,
about that?
that is true, and I do remember, because I actually remember you had an open house. Pinnacle does what they call a pre-board tour, which was a new term for me. So pre-board, you correct me if I'm wrong, but that is just before the drywall goes up.
That's correct. Yep.
So you guys have really started the renovation, but you're able to see what goes in before the drywall.
Full transparency. We want people to be able to see what we do. We don't want to cover up our sins. We want people to see it.
And it was very enlightening to me, because it was the first open house I ever went to where there was no drywall.
Right. For a realtor, that had to feel surreal.
Right. It felt very, very unusual for me. But I remember these people came in and we met, and they came to that, and they actually loved it, and people really do. In fact, if you've never come to one of these pre-board tours, you should come to them, because it's very, very educational.
It is indeed.
Anyway, but yeah, you're right. They gave us a needle in a haystack.
Right.
They had one specific area. They wanted to be in Tri-Wood, and they wanted a view. And they wanted it to be a bungalow. Yep. I mean, these were really difficult, and the price point that they were at, and it took us 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
2 years. We never gave up on them.
I didn't realize it was that long. I was and you didn't give up on them, and the story was ridiculous, because in that neighborhood, if you remember, the day that house went on the market, I think there was 12 builder trucks lined up to put offers.
Right.
And the criteria was so funny, because it was an aged lady. Her criteria to her estate was that it had to be renovated, not knocked down. We were the only ones on that block that were renovators. All the rest were there to knock it down, but it was killer. Up in Tri-Wood, COP view, mountain view, green space across from it. It was unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was what I call an off-market listing, we have had a lot of success with that, and we're probably one of the few real estate teams that actually really work hard at finding properties that are not just listed, because when you are just going after those, you are, of course, it can be very competitive and really challenging to find those needles in the haystack.
Right.
So we had to go and do a lot of legwork to find that property, and it was a referral from a neighbor from our efforts that word of mouth that found us that place.
Exactly.
So, and that was another very happy ending, because that was another project when it was done, and I don't think you'll ever get those people out of that house either.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and then, I mean, that was extensive. We did 3 additions to that home. They didn't want to destroy the footprint or the aesthetic of the home, so it's a lower slope bungalow, lower slope roof, but all the parts and pieces that went in created an eco-friendly home, completely wrapped in styrofoam, triple glazed windows, did HRVs, and the whole 9 yards. Qualified. It was the one during that Greener Homes grant. I don't know if you knew this, but it was the highest rated home. They had never paid out as much for that Greener Home grant as to that homeowner, because we did it all.
Right.
We did the whole wrap. We did spray foam. We did the windows. We did the furnace, the HVAC, HRVs, everything, and roughed it for solar as well. So yeah, it was pretty gratifying.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that, and I know you feel the same way I do. This is really what gets us up every morning.
It does, yeah.
Is for me, just finding that property, and knew that the day that they walked there and saw it, this was the location. And they couldn't believe that we stuck with them that long to find it. They were shocked at that, but again, and then when you guys came in and did that work for them and made it exactly the way they wanted it, and I'll never forget the day that we did that open house, because when we finish these projects, Pinnacle puts on these amazing open houses and allows people to come over.
Great point. That was one of the highest attended open houses we've ever done. We had 280 people through in 6 hours.
Right.
280.
Yeah.
it was just people couldn't believe what had been done, and of course everybody wanted to see what the end result was.
Three people wanted to know if they could buy it.
Right. Yeah. That happens. We have that happen fairly often at our open houses. We, as you know, Rob, as a new home builder, they have open houses. They have they have that. They have show homes. Renovators don't. We're one of the few renovators. For 20 years now, we've had over 12,000 visitors through our open houses. Quite an amazing testament. But how else would you vet a renovator than seeing their finished product? And you can't.
Right.
So we've done that both on the pre-board side and the finished project. And you and I have worked so well collaboratively there. You've been set up. You brought people mortgage opportunities. You brought them brokerage opportunities, real estate sell and list as well. So it's been a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, it is true. I mean, because there's, from what I can see, there's a lot of renovation jobs that I've seen. You wouldn't want to do an open house.
You've seen the good, bad, and ugly, and a lot of ugly.
I know some of these ones I've walked into is like, you shouldn't even be showing this to realtors,
right.
let alone an open house,
right.
Because it's true. Over the years, I have seen some very bad renovations, and it is a plug-in for Pinnacle, but I will give you credit. I mean, I've been to these open houses and I've seen the quality of the work firsthand. I have gone through with these with a fine-tooth comb, trying to find something that I would go in sometimes saying, I'm going to find something to point this out to Paul, but I never can find anything,
Well, kind words. I mean, we're not perfect by any stretch, but we have a passion for this. And like you said, it's what gets us up in the morning. You and me both, we have a passion for the outcome for the client. And when the family can make their home not just a house, a home, and it becomes their favorite place to be, that's kind of our slogan, renovating homes for life. And life is so much that goes around that, for sure. Rob, do you want to segue into our next podcast? Because this has been 3 case studies. Hopefully you've all enjoyed them, but obviously many more we could talk about today.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, how are we doing for time?
Well, there's two podcasts that we're going to do that are very important, and we're both very passionate about that, and that is the Homes for Life.
Yes.
And there's so much information around that
True.
that people are not aware of. And the reality is that we have to build Homes for Life because the aging population cannot keep up to the demand to move to particular kind of properties or condominiums or the assisted living,
right.
anything like that, where there really is not enough to meet the demand. So that is a very good podcast to attend. And then the other one, of course, even this is really, to me, still along the line of Homes for Life, is is putting in laneway homes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Can't say enough about that.
And that's, I mean, as you all know that are watching, or maybe you don't know, but the new RCG ruling with the City of Calgary, there's obviously contention with it and there's pro and con, but it's certainly opened up a lot of opportunities and there's going to be a lot more laneways put in for a lot of reasons. But that lifetime home piece, I mean, we've got seminars coming. We do about 2 seminars a year with that. You've been so gracious in being part of the guest speakers for those. We've got another one coming up in October. But the open houses are awesome, and the laneway, that whole conversation, we've got an open house coming up for the laneway as well. So yeah, a lot of conversation around that in Calgary right now. Density, home crisis, it's just, it's so relevant.
And that's why, in my industry, and I look at, traditionally, you just call a realtor up to see what your house is worth and then decide whether you're going to list it or not. Yep. Well, now, we're just gone to a whole other level because you have to look at these things. Well, maybe you should do a laneway. Maybe you should stay and renovate. Maybe you want to do something to make it a Homes for Life. Or again, maybe you move to something and then do it there. But I think the options are, especially with laneway homes, boy, you have more options today than you've ever had.
Correct.
Like ever.
Correct.
I mean, I can't even believe that laneway house you did recently in Lake Monte Vista. I'm saying, Mr. Keith, I'm telling you, the guy would roll over in his grave if he would have gone to Lake Monte Vista and see a laneway house there, right? I mean, he was dead against that stuff, and it's happening in Lake Monte Vista.
Indeed. Let's save that for the podcast. I think we're getting the cue that there's so much to talk about. You and I tend to ramble pretty quickly, but that's a pretty cool podcast coming up. So stay tuned for sure. Been a pleasure working with you today, Rob, and hopefully all of you really got some takeaways from our podcast here today.
Thanks, Paul. And again, never hesitate to reach out, give us your comments. We're always here to answer questions for anybody, no matter where you're at in the process of real estate.
Indeed. Have an awesome day.